All right, so today we're going to talk about slope, and it's important for us to understand what slope is. So there's a couple of things that I'm going to go over. Slope for us represents the rise over the run in a picture. And one of the ways that remember that the rise comes first is that you have to rise out of bed before you can go on a run. Our formula for this is going to be y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1, okay? And this is something that tends to bother all of you, is these 2's and 1's and 2's and 1's. And you're like, I don't understand why I have to do that. So if we break this down into simplicity, it's just the y's over the x's. So we're going to subtract the y's over the x's, and you'll notice that the only thing that's important is that we just have to match up which point we put first. Okay. I want to talk about a couple of things. If I was running on a treadmill, this would be a 0 incline. And it's a little crooked, so I'm going to redo that. If I was running on a treadmill, that would be a 0 incline. This would be a positive slope. It would be a positive incline, okay? To go down a mountain would be a negative slope, a negative incline. Again, to go straight across would be a 0 slope. And then to go straight up and down would be undefined. We would be unable to do that. Okay. So we're going to use this formula primarily today to talk about what our different slopes are. It's just that we do need to have a basic understanding of a positive slope, a negative slope, a 0 slope, and an undefined. So we start off on that finding slope from 2 points worksheet. I'm on number 1, which has really big numbers, which we're kind of upset about, but it's okay. I'm going to rewrite my formula, which is that y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. This just means let's take one of the points. Say this one. And we're going to plug negative 15 in for y2. Okay. And that same point has to give us our x. So I get negative 7 for my x. The reason why I took the second one is because you've been taught to typically take the second one. You'll find that later on throughout this video, we might use the first one instead sometimes to make our problems a little easier. Okay. And then I'm going to subtract from that the first y and the first x. So my first y is negative 16. My first x is 19. And I have to put subtraction signs here, even though this one already had a subtraction sign. When I get a double subtraction sign, it turns into positives. So I really get negative 15 plus 16, which I, in my head, switch around to say this. And I get 1. Right here I have negative 7 minus 19. They are both negative. It is getting more negative. I am going to get a negative 26 out of that. So my slope is going to be 1 over negative 26. Some of us might like to rewrite this so that the negative is straight in front of it so that it's not associated with the 26 portion. Okay, so that's a really unusual slope based on how big that bottom number is. Let's do this one. Okay, I'm going to rewrite that formula every time. If I'm rewriting it every time, you should be rewriting it every time. The reason why is this is going to help you memorize that formula. So I'm going to take my y's over my x's. And here, I'm going to take that first y, and I'm going to call it y2, just because. If I do that, I just have to make sure that I take my bottom piece from the same exact point. So that's the important thing, is taking that bottom piece from the same exact point. Then I'm going to put that subtraction sign because there's always a subtraction sign. I'm going to change my highlighted color because I'm working with a different point now. And I am always taking that second number first because that's the y. Okay. Taking that second number first because that's the y, and putting my x's on the bottom. Okay. Here, I get to go through and I get to cross through these negative signs and make positive because it's a double negative. We move over, we get negative 19 plus 7. Okay. And I'm going to rewrite that as 7 minus 19. I get 1 plus 3. 1 plus 2, sorry. I did the work for you already. On the bottom, I get 3. On the top, it's a little more difficult, and the reason why is because our negative is the bigger one. So in my head, what I'm doing right now is I'm taking the 19 and I'm subtracting the 7. But since I knew the 19 was originally the negative, I'm going to leave it as a negative number. 19 minus 7 is going to give me 12. So I get 12 over 3, which is negative. And this is not my answer. The reason why is because it can simplify. So please draw a little star and a note for yourself that says simplify. Okay. Negative 12 divided by 3 is going to give us negative 4. This is my slope. This means I'm going to move 4 down and over 1. Right here. I'm going to rewrite that equation again. So the equation for slope is y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. I'm going to take my 7 minus negative 4. The reason why I put the 7 first was because the 7 was positive. I did it in a slightly different order this time. I took all my y's and put them on the top, because some of you are going to find that that's a little easier for you. Some of you are going to find you like it the way I did it the first time. Okay. So when I write my x's, I have to do the pink x first, because the pink x was what I did first the first time. Okay, I did the pink y first, so I have to do the pink x first. So then I have to write my blue x from that second point. And don't forget the negative sign in between. These again are double negatives. With double negatives, I get to cross them out and turn them into a big positive. I'm going to rewrite it. 7 plus 4, negative 4 plus 6. I'm going to rewrite it again. This gives me 11. This gives me 6 minus 4 because I just moved the numbers around, which is going to give me 11 over 2. I cannot simplify. This is my slope. So now you're going to write your equation for slope over here on the side. It's that rise over run. It's the y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. It's the y's over the x's. Okay? I'm going to look at my y's first. I'm looking at my 8 and my 16. it is better for me to take the 16 before the 8. The reason why is that will help me keep positive numbers. So I'm going to do the 16 before the 8. This means that I need to take the 9 before the 20. Okay? Some of you are sitting there going, but I don't really want to do that subtraction. Well, sometimes it works out that way that we aren't able to make it so that they're both positive. Sometimes one is going to be negative and one is going to be positive, and it doesn't matter which way we do it. It's just going to turn out that way. So 16 minus 8 gives us 8. On the bottom, 9 minus 20. The 20 is bigger and it's negative. Okay. And so I'm going to switch this around and I'm going to do in my head 20 minus 9 and get 11. So this is my slope because I cannot simplify. This would represent going 8 up and going 11 to the left. But a lot of times you've been taught to just rewrite this like this. And so a lot of you have been taught to go down 8 and write 11. It will result in the same line. It doesn't matter. Okay. Number 5. So I'm going to take my y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. I'm looking at my x's. And nothing is going to help me do this. So I'm going to look at my y's. Okay. Since I have a positive y, I'm going to put that one first. So I have 8 minus negative 13. So I took my pink one first, my blue one second, which means that I have to do the same thing with my x's. I'm going to go take my pink x first. Minus my blue x. Okay. Here I get 17 minus 17 is 0. 8 minus negative 13, that turns into dual positives. I get 8 plus 13, which is 21. 21 divided by 0 is impossible. This is undefined. So I get an undefined whenever I divide by 0. Okay. What this really meant is when you were looking at the graph, my x's were the same, which means that I got that 0 slope. Sorry, my x's were the same, which means that I got that undefined slope. Okay, where all of my x's lined up, I get that straight up and down graph. All right. So you've got about a whole nother page and a little bit to go. Go ahead and do that on your own. I have full faith in you. Then when you're done, you're going to come back and listen to the rest of the video on the next page, which describes slope. And this one gives us a graph. So I'm looking between 2 points. So again, if you haven't paused and finished those other 2 pages, finish those 2 pages first. So now I am assuming that you finished those 2 pages. I'm looking at 2 points right now. And rather than go and do that x2 minus x1 underneath the y2 minus the y1, rather than go and do that, I'm just going to use our little shortcut of rise over run. So to get from my point on the left to my point on the right, I need to go down 1 and over 1, 2, 3. So to represent the down, I'm going to put -1 over 3. Okay. So all we're doing is counting. And you should have been able to tell from the beginning that this was going to be a negative slope, because as I go from left to right, I'm moving downwards. As I go from left to right, I'm moving upwards. This one should become a positive slope. Okay, so I'm going to go from my left point to my right point, and I move my up and down first. I do my rise first. My rise in this case is going up 1, 2, 3. Since it went up this time instead of down this time, the 3 is positive. Then I go to the right 1. That was my run. Okay. Now, lots of teachers will mark you incorrect for this as your slope because they want to see it simplified. This simplified would be 3. Okay. So, you can keep on going. You can do the rest of these. There are a few more that simplify here. Make sure that you get them done. Then it's asking you to find the slope between each pair of points. That's what we did on the previous 2 pages. You can totally do this. Okay. Find the slope of each line. Our equation of a line is y equals mx plus b, where m stands for slope. Okay, so my slope is that number in front of the x every single time. Problem is this one. But I can still go through and I can just highlight all those slopes. Problem is this one. Problem is this one. So for 25 and 26, you need to change these into y equals mx plus b form. The way you do that is by subtracting the 2x over and solving for y. So I get 3y equals -2x plus 9. I can divide by 3. I can divide by 3. I can divide by 3. Here I get y equals -2/3 x plus 3. My slope is the number in front of the x. I'm leaving 26 for you to do. I'm going to go back to number 20. Right here, it is an x equals line. So we're going back to what we learned last time of the vux versus the hoi. Okay, a vux has an x equals. So if it's an x equals line, it's vertical and it has an undefined slope. The slope literally is not there. It is undefined. Okay. So that's your assignment for the day. Please make sure that you go and ask your teacher whatever questions that you may have. We are collecting this at the end of the class period.